So if you were here for some other class other than DScan 101, I'm afraid you're in the wrong place, but hopefully you're all here for DScan 101. And so first I'll just introduce myself. My name is Declan. I'm an FC and Scout and E-War pilot and bad PvEer, except for with incursions where I'm pretty good. And terrible miner. So does anybody else have any questions about what we're planning on covering in the class or myself? All right, excellent. Sounds like we're off to a good start. Everybody's in the right place. So I've put a link to a slide presentation in lecture.E-UNI. If you click that link, you'll be able to follow along with me as I go through the slides. I believe that this set of slides is going to be, or is already possibly being condensed into a shorter version that doesn't account for having a practical, but we will be having a practical today, so I'm going to just use this set that we have here. So, if you have questions and you want to speak up in Mumble, please use a push-to-talk key as opposed to having a hot mic. It just makes it easier for everybody to hear clearly. If you have questions along the way, feel free to ask. I'll invite questions at certain points throughout the lecture. And there we have a set of slides. There we go. Is everybody able to see the slides correctly, by the way? Can I just get confirmation that they're working? Okay, great. So is everybody looking at the contents page right now? Brilliant. This is the first time I've done a lecture using a slideshow, so just want to make sure it's working correctly. All right, so the directional scanner, or DScan, is what you use in order to see, basically, in space, anything that's not on grid with you. And you can use it out to a range of 14.3 AU, or astronomical units. For anybody that's curious, one astronomical unit is apparently 149,597 and 870 kilometers, which is very important, obviously. I'm sure it's important to somebody. So 14.3 AU, if it's a small system, you're going to be covering most of the center of the system where things are. It's a medium-sized system, you might be covering a quarter or an eighth of it, and for a large system, much less than that. But it does let you find things in space. It lets you see things that are warping to where you are. It doesn't show anything that is cloaked. And when you use your directional scanner and you get a list of things that you're seeing, you can't warp to them directly from your directional scanner list, which is different than if they're on your overview. So if something's on your overview, you can warp to it from there, but you can't from your directional scanner. So you use your directional scanner to just keep awareness of what's going on around you. If you're doing mining or running missions or just traveling, it lets you see what's coming to where you are. And also when you're out hunting for people, doing PvP, it lets you find them. And so you use it slightly differently in each of those two different cases. So, you aren't on the content slide, click the paperclip. Ah, there's a paperclip. Thank you very much. Is everybody seeing the Let's Go slide now? Yep. All right. Okay, great. Excellent. Let's go. So, I've got a fleet, and join this fleet. I'm going to practice in space. So go ahead and undock in StackMon. Get yourself tethered to a Citadel, just for safety's sake, in case war targets decide they want to show up. We are at war at the moment, so get yourself tethered to one of the Citadels here in StackMon. And okay, so Venucci's just explaining to me how the slide works. So I have to click the paperclip each time I move slides. Thank you. Thanks, Venucci. To tether to a Citadel, all you have to do is be near a Citadel that you have docking permissions at. And when I say near, I mean within the ring of lights that surrounds it. And then you'll get a little icon above your capacitor that says tethered. There's a few more details around, what will prevent you from tethering, but for right now, that's the short, simple answer. As long as you don't have a weapons timer, nobody's got you scrammed, then you'll be able to tether just by being close to it. So, if everybody can join in the fleet and warp to Declan, we'll all be at this Citadel together, and we can take it from here. I'm just going to wait for about 30 seconds for everybody to warp to Declan. If you're not sure how to warp to Declan, then you will see that I've put 3 W's in lecture. And so I've just done that so you can easily find my name. You can right-click on my name and click Fleet, Warp to Member. I'm seeing we've got, at the moment, 3 people that are not yet here. Are you guys going to be doing the practical and participating here, or are you just wanting to listen in? Just a couple of people now. Okay. Yep, no worries, no problem. Great. Alrighty. So, if you look at the slideshow for a second, you'll see that there's a picture there of the directional scanner. It is actually accurate depending on how wide you have your directional scanner window set. So it's approximately accurate, not quite close. Basically, though, the key thing is you have a scan button, you have 2 sliders, one for range, one for angle. You have a button for the map, and you have a drop-down for a filter. So what I'd like everybody to do, if you currently have the E-UNI overview settings, then when you click the filter drop-down, you will see that you have one of your settings is called 9D-scan. So that's the one I'm going to be using for this lecture, just while we're all practicing so that we can see the same things. And make sure you've got that filter set. If you do a D-scan from where we are now, you will see a bunch of ships. And the ships that have a distance after them are the ones that are on grid with us, so that's our fleet. The ships that do not have a distance, they just have a hyphen. They are somewhere beyond the range of the grid. So the grid is a term for the things you can see on your overview. So if something is visible on your overview, then on your D-scan you will have a distance for it. Something that's pretty important about about the directional scan results is that it doesn't update in live real time like your overview does. So if a ship warps onto grid with you, you will see it right away in your overview without having to do anything. But if something moves in space and comes within your 14.3 AU sphere, you won't see it unless you click scan again. And so what I do is I have a keyboard, actually it's a mouse binding, set up to refresh my D-scan, and I kind of just reflexively keep pressing that all the time. And it lets me see what's going on around me. So right now you can see there are a couple of Mackinaws and a Procurer and a Venture. They're probably out mining somewhere. There's a Gnosis and an Algos and a Bustard doing whatever they're doing. And poor Gina Drake is in his or her capsule. Is everybody able to see that on your D-scan from where we are now? Some of those things have just moved, but anyway. Certainly the mining ships are still there. Can I get box in lecture.E-UNI if you're not seeing those things. No problem, Pepper. Okay, great. So it looks like everybody can see that. Great. So that's just the basics of using a directional scanner, what the sliders are, the fact that you have to press scan in order for those results to be updated, and the difference between having a distance set on your results versus just a height. Does anybody have any questions about those things? How to show D-scan? That is a very good point. Sorry, I skipped that. I have it on my screen all the time, and I forgot that you have to open it. So to show distance, I misunderstood the question. Okay, to show distance, is it not there by default? How wide is your D-scan window? For me, I have 3 columns in my results. I have name, type, and distance. Distance being the third one, and it doesn't look like I can reorder them, so it might simply be that your D-scan window is not wide enough. So if you need to, you can readjust the width of your D-scan window and then shrink some of the other columns until you can see the distance column. Right. By the way, although you can't reorder the columns, you can change the sort order. So you can sort by name or by type or by distance. And I personally tend to have mine sorted by distance so that things that are on grid with me are all clustered together, and the things that are not on grid with me, similarly, are all clustered together. But if you're hunting for a certain type of ship, you would change that to type, and so on. Any other questions so far? With little range, yes, they do, and I'll come back to that in a minute, Black. So the question was, do people use D-scans with a short range? And the answer is yes, they do, depending on the situation. And I'll explain in a minute or two. All right. If anybody has any more questions, feel free to put a Q in lecture.E-UNI, and then type your question when you get a chance. Otherwise, I'll move on. All right. So in that case, I'll move on to talking about the range and angle sliders. So the slide has a couple of pictures which are possibly for the old D-scan window. I'm not sure. I use the new one. Apparently it's the new one. It's the one that was there since I started playing. So if you mostly just ignore the slide for a moment and just in-game look at your D-scan. If you click the button to open up the solar system map, you will see if you've currently got your D-scan settings to 14.3 AU and a 360-degree angle, you'll see a sphere with your ship at the center of it. You'll see the solar system around you, including various planets, asteroid belts, bookmarks in system that you may have made, things like that, stations, citadels, and you can control how much is visible on that system map by looking at the top left corner of that map window. There's a markers menu, and you can turn on and off each of the different options there according to how much information you want to be able to see at once. Similarly, the next icon over from the markers one is to focus on your current location. So you can drag the map around with your right mouse button, and then you can click the focus current location to have the map be centered on your ship. And then the third icon, which is of particular interest for us at the moment when we're talking about directional scanning, is the directional scan icon. And so if you hover your cursor over that, you'll see that there are 2 checkboxes, one for show scan cone, one for align with camera. The show scan cone, if you check that right now, you'll have that blue sphere around your ship. If you untick it, you'll see it disappears. And so that is showing you how much of the system is currently within your D-scan range. So from where we are right now, we can see that there's a cluster of things around planet 5, which are within D-scan. The sun is, planets 1, 2, 3, and 4 will all be within our D-scan range. There's a Guardian's Gala rendezvous point, which is just outside of our... Well, actually, it's strange. Interestingly enough, visually on the map, it appears that this Gala, which I just broadcast a line to, is outside of the sphere, but it says that 14.23 AU, so possibly the sphere is not completely accurate visually. Okay, so I'm seeing something in lecture. Let me just see the question. So speaking of the map, that D-scan show hide icon will move with the next update. It'll clean up the system up. Yes, there are some changes coming to that map. I haven't looked into all the details, but they're changing the UI of the map. And then Karamiri says, when you're in an active site with a slider, it will warn you someone is going for it. Yes, I'll explain about that. That's right. All right. So that was in answer to Black's question about when a short-range D-scan is useful. But I'll come back to that. Okay, so I just discovered that the visual sphere seems to be slightly inaccurate because it is smaller than the Guardian's Gala rendezvous point, which should be in 14.3 AU. Anyway, so if you would, while you're looking at the map, if you adjust your range down to 10 or 5 AU, using the slider, you'll see the sphere shrink. And similarly, if you put the range back up and you adjust the angle down to, say, 60 degrees, you'll see a cone that's pointed away from your current location, and then that shows you where your D-scan is effectively scanning. And that cone is pointed the same direction that your ship camera, that your camera is pointed. So if you depending on how your camera mode is, if you put your camera mode in, say, which doesn't matter which one you do, anything other than first-person camera, and you rotate your camera on the game, you'll see that cone also moves. And there's a setting that will let you change the effect of that so that when you rotate your camera in the game, the map kind of rotates around you and your scan cone is always pointed forward. That setting is the three icons at the top, the third one, Directional Scan, and then you tick the Align with Camera option. What that will do is it will move the map as you rotate your camera. So you can experiment between those two options and see what you prefer in terms of having that Align with Camera setting turned on or not. And that's down to personal preference, really. I haven't found a particularly efficiency gain either way. It's just up to you what helps you keep your bearings and find things. Something else that's worth pointing out about this solar system map is you can use the different icons on the map to scan in that direction. So if you, for instance, set your angle to 5 degrees and you set your range to 5 AU, and you look on the map near us, there is a cluster of planets, some moons, a station, asteroid belts at planet 7. And so if you pick any one of those icons and use your radial menu and then drag your cursor down, there's a directional scan is the item on the menu. You release your cursor on that and it will align your camera to that cluster and do a D-scan for you. So you can see there's a Procurer and a Venture over there. So chances are they're at the asteroid belt or one of the asteroid belts. Yeah, I'll repeat that. It's really key, actually. This is one of the things that is totally not obvious, and it's one of the easiest ways to find things that are at green sites. So actually, I'd like everybody to take this warp. We're going to do this on a green site. I'll repeat it slowly. So Fleet, we're warping to a bookmark, and we will be near to the Serpentis refuge that is in system. So there is a Serpentis combat site. And so it's not going to be visible on your overview at all. You can't use your overview to help you scan this thing down. But what we can do is you can use the system map. So when you land at the bookmark and you bring up your map again, if you haven't already still got it open, you'll see that near to us, within 3 AU, is a Serpentis refuge combat site. So if you adjust the range on your directional scanner to 3 AU by typing in the distance field, pressing enter, so it's 3 enter, changes that to 3 AU. And then don't adjust your camera manually. Just go into the map, the system map that you get when you click the map icon from your directional scanner. It will bring up the same map that we've been looking at. Make sure that it is currently showing anomalies, which I think probably are always on. Oh, you might have to open your probe scanner window for them to show. Okay, so if you're not seeing the refuge site, try opening your probe scan window for a second. The keyboard shortcut for that, I think, is Alt-P by default. And you may have to set your filters in your probe scan window to show anomalies. So, got your probe scan window open, showing anomalies. Then you should see on your system map the green Serpentis refuge. Is anybody?
Laser.
You're not seeing it.
It looks like it's gone.
I'm going to try warping to it.
Do just the cosmic signet.
Okay, it's not letting me warp to it. Yeah. Okay, so somebody just finished running that site. That's unfortunate because it would have been a nice example for us. That's okay. We can do the example with an asteroid belt, and I'll have to take my word for it that it works for the green sites as well. So if you extend your range out to 10 AU, and you look on your system map, you'll see that there's planet 10, which is less than 10 AU away. Is everybody seeing that so far? Okay, I'm going to assume that's a yes. So, on the system map, if you put your cursor over the asteroid belt at planet 10, you hold your mouse button down, or if you've set a different shortcut for your radial menu, then use that. You will get a menu that comes up, and drag your cursor down to the bottom of that circle of options, and you'll get a tooltip that says Directional Scan. Let your cursor go, and you'll see that the scan cone rotates around that cluster and performs a scan. And there are no ships there right now, but if you change your filter to include some other things, let's see what's going to be there. If you just set your filter to all for a moment, you will see that there is a mobile depot, a moon, military station, an asteroid belt, a planet, and a customs office, all there. So who can tell me what's the name of the mobile depot that is at Planet 10? Just type that in lecture.E-UNI. At least the first word of it. Yeah, it's something probably Polish, but yeah, Polska, exactly. There you go. So that trick that we just did of using the radial menu on something that's in your solar system map, you can use on combat sites, and is very useful for scanning those down, which you couldn't otherwise do. The asteroid belt you could find in your overview and track it from there, but the green sites you can't. So I'll come back to that later. Is everybody clear on the angle and range and how that affects what you're scanning? If anybody has questions about angle and range, fire away. And while you're waiting, see if you can locate any of the Venture or Retriever, which are somewhere nearby. Okay, who can tell me the name of the Retriever, which is within 2AU?
Something black retriever?
Yep, exactly. Good job. Alrighty, so I'm going to move on now to talk about aiming, how to locate, how to point your cone where you want it to go. So we've looked at one way already, which is using the icons on the map. The other way, well, there's a couple other ways you can do it. One is if you have your brackets turned on in space and you find something in space that you want to see what's there, you can do the same trick. No, you can't. Sorry. Take it back. The radial menu option doesn't work, but what you can do is you can hold down C and then click that bracket, and that will align your camera to that location, and then press your scan button, and then you'll scan that location in space. That's one way. It's probably the worst way. I've never done it in the moment, but you could. A situation where that might be useful would be maybe if you're trying to see if there's somebody located at a cosmic signature that you don't have scanned down, but you just want to see if they're roughly in that direction. You could set your angle to something like 60 degrees or 90 degrees or something and align your camera to the direction of that bracket. Don't worry about not seeing the Retriever yet. We'll have some more practice in a little bit. More useful way is from your overview. So if you set yourself up with an overview for finding people, I'd highly recommend that, by the way. If you tend to do a lot of scouting or solo PvP and you want to be able to find things, find people to kill, or just find people to shoot fireworks at, you set yourself up with an overview tab that's specifically designed for finding people. And the way I've done that is I've set it up so that I've got celestials, not all of them, but planets, moons, asteroid belts, beacons, landmarks, stargates, wormholes, that kind of thing, all on that overview tab, as well as ships, sovereignty structures, star bases, citadels, engineering complexes. And the big one is the moons. There are a lot of moons, so it can get to be a fairly long overview. You might want to make one without moons, but the main thing is that you've got all those locations where people might warp to when they're trying to just sit there somewhere and do their thing or hide. And so let's practice for a second. So we know we have a Retriever within, it's currently within, it's probably still the same spot, within 5AU, sure. If you go to an overview tab where you have asteroid belts showing, and then in your overview, you can look and see, okay, what asteroid belts are there that are less than 5AU away? There's currently 3. They're all around Planet 9, so there's belts 1, 2, and 3 around Planet 9. Again, you can hold down the C key on your keyboard, click the asteroid belt in your overview, and then press the D-scan button, or your shortcut for it. And that will align your camera to the belt and then perform a scan. So that's the quickest way. If you've determined that something you're looking for is within a certain distance, then you can look on your overview at all of the celestials that are within that range, align your camera there, and perform scan. So, welcome, that retriever is still there. He's, if you look at Planet 9 Asteroid Belt 1, put your camera in that direction at 5 degrees, with a 5 AU range, or 2 AU would also work, then you should see the retriever. Okay, so the reason we use the 5 AU is just to eliminate other possible locations for things. If you kept it at a 360-degree scan, you wouldn't know where it was. You would just know that it was somewhere near. And that's okay if you're wanting to use it defensively. If you're wanting to see, if you're doing a mission or you're mining, you might want to keep your range at about somewhere between 5 and 10 AU, 360 degrees, and just keep an eye and just keep refreshing your D-scan every 3 seconds or so. And if you see something coming close, reduce the range and set it down to 1 AU. If it's still there, then it's time to align out and get ready to go. So that's defensive using defensive D-scan. Does anybody have any questions about adjusting range or angle, about just what range or angle for now? We'll come back to using the overview and brackets and such when we're doing a practical. Okay, so in that case, I'll move on to talking about the different uses for D-scan. Obviously, when you're scouting, looking for people to kill, you're going to want to find them in space first, and D-scan is perfect for that. You can also use it if the person that you're looking for isn't actually at a celestial that you can warp to from your overview. You might be able to use your combat probes to find them. But you can reduce the time it takes to do that if you get yourself a fairly close angle-wise and distance-wise scan of where they are using your D-scanner first. That will reduce the number of times that you have to use your combat probes, and it will increase the chances that you'll catch them. When you're wanting to use your D-scan defensively, you will see if somebody drops combat probes, like I just did. So if you refresh your D-scan right now, you'll see there are a bunch of combat probes on grid with us. That's a sign that somebody is definitely looking for you. If they get closer and closer to where you are, again, it's time to align out. So you can see scan probes on your overview. You can, if you're inside a plex that has any kind of complex or combat site that has an acceleration gate that you need to take in order to get into it, you can keep your D-scan range really short. Like 1 AU is easy, or even less if you're wanting to. And that will let you see what's just on the other side of that acceleration gate. And you'll know for sure somebody's about to come get me. Or similarly, if you're going to a combat site and you set your range to be really short, 360 degrees, it will tell you for sure that the person you're looking for is inside. Somebody asked a question about the overview, and somebody else is answering it, so that's great. It's really helpful to have your overview set up to a good standard, and the E-UNI standard is a good one. Useful for just filtering out a lot of the noise and seeing things clearly. And so Venucci has linked a chat channel called overview.e-uni. So if you're in-game, you can use that, and it will let you download and install the Uni standard package for the overview. So, one of the other things that you'll see on your D-scan is, depending on if somebody has renamed their ship or not, you can see the player's name. So on grid with us, for instance, we have a Tristan named Wokum's Tristan. We have a Velator named Audrey Tinkerbolt's Velator. We have a Merlin named something clever, and Tristan named Tristan, and some other things as well. So if you're out scouting and you see that somebody's ship has not been renamed and it says, for example, Wokum's Tristan, and you see that Wokum is in local with you, then you can use that to gather information about the person. So, for instance, I just did a search and I found Wokum. You can do that same search and find other people as well, just by searching for their name on Zcash. So, for example, here's me. Yeah, Wokum is a noob. So I was gonna sorry, Wokum. I was gonna link your killboard, but then I saw you had died a fair bit and hadn't killed too many people, so I thought it might not be very nice of me to do that. So I used my own as an example. But what you can do is you can gather intel. So if you go on zkillboard.com, you can search for the character's name, and you can see what kinds of ships they like to fly, how those ships are fit, and so on. So if you've got a ship on scan that says it's Wokum's Tristan, and you look on Wokum's Zkill history and you find his losses of Tristans, you can see how Tristan may or may not be fit, and give you extra information about how to fight him. So that's why it's important to always rename your ship, so that it doesn't have your player. Does anybody have any questions about the different scenarios where you would use D-scan, where it's useful? One other one I didn't mention, by the way, is finding drones. So people often warp off and leave their drones behind. You can use that to your advantage and scan them down, scoop them up if they've left them at a celestial that you can up to. Question: if some PvP is going, will you have time to see fittings at Zkillboard? Often, yeah. If you're hunting, and so you've got yourself to a bookmark somewhere in system that's safe, relatively safe, you can go ahead and it's often worth it to take the 30 seconds or so to look up the character's history on Zkill and see how they tend to be fit. That amount of information is hugely beneficial when you're going in to fight them, so it's worth taking the time. Obviously, you don't always have time to do that, but if you do, it's worth doing. Okay, so when you're D-scanning and you're scouting for a fleet, for instance, it's often very valuable to be able to share the results of your directional scan with your fleet commander and with the rest of the fleet. So this slide mentions a couple of options as to what those are. Eve tools or D-scan me. The ones that I tend to use, the one that I tend to use for that purpose is called a dashboard. So I'm going to put a copy of that here in lecture. So if you click that link, it brings up a website where you can paste anything. Click parse, and then it will bring up a new page with a URL that you can copy and paste into Fleet Chat. So, for example, if your FC has asked you to, or you're out scouting and looking for a fight, and you see a group of ships that it's difficult to just quickly go, yeah, I've got 2 Merlins here, right? That's easy. But if it's like a dozen ships or even 6 or more, something like this dashboard tool is very useful. And what you can do is, after you've done your D-scan on whatever you're hunting down, click your cursor in the D-scan window, and then press Control-A. Control-A selects all, and then you can do Control-C to copy, and then go into the dashboard website, into the Paste Anything box, press Control-V, click Parse, and it'll bring up a new page showing you all the different ships, including which ones are on-grid, which ones are off-grid, and it's very useful for gathering intel for your fleet. So here's an example of what's around us at the moment within 14.38. So you can click that link and see, oh, okay, we've got a couple of ventures and some frigates and destroyers. Does anybody have any questions about using a dashboard? All right. So what we're going to do is... Oh, hang on, we do have a question. The internal browser, does that still exist? No, the internal browser does not exist. So ignore the bit where it talks about the internal browser. It used to be able to tell you what system you were in, and so then the scan would tell you the name of your system. It doesn't do that anymore, but that's okay. It's still very useful. And how do you copy D-scan info? All right, so once you've done a directional scan and you've got your results list showing, put the focus on that window. Just sort of click anywhere on the D-scan window, and then press Control-A and Control-C. And you won't see anything right away, other than, Control-A will highlight all the list of results in your D-scan. Control-C, you won't see anything. But then you can paste that list of names, types, and distances into, well, anywhere, but you can paste it into a dashboard. And then click Parse. And then you can copy the URL that's been generated and paste it somewhere. Got it. All right, awesome. All right, guys, what we're going to do is I'm going to warp everybody back to the Citadel for a second. We're going to have a 5-minute break. If anybody has any more questions at that time, feel free to ask. Otherwise, just go ahead and take a bio break. And when we come back, we'll do some practical exercises.